Hey guys, welcome back to Boots and Batty Homestead. My name is Casey. For any new viewers we have to the channel, go ahead and like and subscribe, and that way you can catch this whole series. So like I've been saying for about the last 3 or 4 weeks on Facebook and some various comments that have been going on some of my previous videos, that I'm going to do like a beginning to end very detailed series on sourdough. It's a new year. Everybody wants to start new sourdough starters. It's a new sourdough journey everybody wants to go on. You know, the whole fad that probably 75% of people won't make it through January, you know, just like their resolutions they make. So I hope that's not you, because I am here to help you. Now, a lot of people want to get on the internet and YouTube, and they want to research sourdough, and they want a little bit from this person, they want a little bit from that person, and then they get so much information that they scare themselves on doing it. So what I want to do in this series is tell you what you're going to find on the internet, and I'm going to dumb it down if that makes any sense. I'm just going to dumb everything down for you. I'm going to make it relatable, and I want you to understand. Now, if you're a scientific person, if you want numbers, if you want percentages, if you want down to the specifics of a hundredths of a tenth of a gram kind of person, if you've got to know exacts and specifics, number one, this is not the channel for you, because I do not do that. And I cannot explain the scientific details. I can just make it relatable to something that you understand. And if you want to take it farther and go into detail from there, you're on your own. And then 2, sourdough does not have specifics. There are no rules. There are a lot of people's opinions. There are a lot of different ways to do it. And that's why people get so confused on the hows and the whys and the whats and the whens, and all that can be so overwhelming, because there's so many people's opinions and the way they do things, and you're looking at all of them at once online. And that's where I tell people that, number one, get my sourdough started on our Etsy store. I'll put the link up here, and it's also down below in the description. So if you want to skip the starting your own starter step, I do have mine there in the Etsy store, and you get full contact with me. You get a full mentorship, one-on-one. You get all my contact information, personal information, to be able to contact me, to ask me any questions, to send me photos, to send me videos, to call me crying, or whatever you want to do. I don't care. But I make sourdough relatable. On one of the comments, it was pretty funny. If I can find it, I'll put a snippet of it right here. But she said, "Oh my gosh, I found my channel as soon as I hear you say that sourdough farts." And it does. I make it relatable so that you understand, because I want you to understand. So we are going to get started talking about sourdough starter. If you have done your own sourdough starter, if it has failed, if it has thrived, if you have your own sourdough business, and you are just interested in what I want to say, please listen to the whole thing. Let me know additional stuff in the comments, because we're here to share with everybody. First of all, I want to just talk to you about a starter. A lot of people are like, "Oh, yay, I've got a sourdough starter, and I can do all this and that." And yes, you can. But what is a sourdough starter? What is it? A lot of people don't even know what it is. Where does it come from? How does it thrive? You know, that kind of thing. So that's where I want to start with this video, and we'll get to starting a starter a little bit later on. So if that's what you're interested in, you might have to skip ahead a little bit. But we're going to talk specifics, because I need you to understand what a sourdough starter is, and why we do it, why we need it, and all of that. Okay, so why do you need a starter? Okay, so think of regular bread, regular white store-bought bread. What it is other than the crap they put in it. If you make it at home, okay, white, normal yeast loaf. You have commercial yeast that you have to put in warm water and let it bloom. You usually have to give it a little sugar or honey or syrup. You have your salt, flour, and water, and some kind of fat. So that makes a basic loaf of bread. With a sourdough starter, you are replacing a little bit of that water and flour, and you grow your own yeast. So a starter can replace, in essence, a commercial yeast. Not one for one in a recipe, of course. I just want you to mentally think about it. So if you have a recipe that has yeast, what you're doing is you're replacing that commercial yeast with a sourdough yeast starter. So that's what it is. It's going to be what you use for like baking soda, baking powder. Usually that's not in a bread recipe, but sometimes it can be. If you don't want to use yeast or can't use yeast, they can sometimes swap that for baking soda, baking powder. But we're just talking about strictly just bread right now, not cookies and brownies and cakes and all that stuff. I just want you to mentally understand where it's coming from. So what happens in a starter is that yeast is alive. It's a live being. It's a form of like a bacteria, a yeast bacteria. And what it does and how it lives is it eats the flour. The flour turns into the sugar, and that's what makes sourdough starter lower on the glycemic index and better for diabetes. So yes, that is essentially true. When you have a sourdough starter of yeast, basically what it is, yeast, you have to feed it to keep it alive. So you feed it flour and water, and that's what keeps it alive. It has to stay moist because it can't dry out, and the food is actually the flour part of it. Now, feeding it, you can feed it anything you want to. Some yeast starters, the yeast in the starter will like better flours than others, but you can essentially feed it anything. Mine discriminates fully against bread flour. It will not rise to save its life. It will not do anything if I feed it bread flour. I can bake with it, but it will not feed on bread flour. And that's just mine. It might thrive differently in your house. It might like your house and your bread flour better, but it doesn't like it here. And that's the characteristic that I know from doing this for so long. I have been doing sourdough off and on in different variations since I was in high school. And that was quite some years ago.